Hi friend, today I've got my hands on the biggest ink screen I've ever tested on this channel, the Boox Note Max. This thing is an absolute beast, but let's just say some of the hardware choices are questionable. More on that later. In this review, I went deep into everything that matters: build quality, tech specs, and of course that massive display. But that's just a start. I also tested its reading and writing experience, explored its features and overall performance, and really put it through its paces. But here's what I really want to know. Is it worth the $650 price tag, and what exactly do you get for that money? Well, if you're considering this as your next ink device, you may be in for a surprise. Stick around until the very end because I will break down who this device is actually for and give you an honest thoughts whether it's worth your money. There's a lot to go through, so make yourself a tea or coffee and let's get right into it. The first thing I noticed when I picked up the Boox Note Max is how elegant it feels. Despite being just 4.6mm thick, it feels incredibly solid, like one sturdy piece of hardware. No flexing, no weird creaking noises, and definitely no bending when I applied pressure. That's always a good sign. That thinness, although incredible, comes at a cost of battery. More on that later. Now, the back of the device is plasticky, but it's got this subtle, sparkly sheen that gives it a premium look. More importantly, it doesn't pick up fingerprints, which is a huge plus. Running through the back is that silver metal strip, and I'd guess that's what gives this massive 13-inch screen some extra structural support. The sides and power button are all metal, while the front is plastic with a matte texture designed to mimic paper. And honestly, it does feel like paper when you touch it, which is a nice touch, no pun intended, for an e-ink device. As for ports and buttons, here's the layout. The power button and microphone at the top, speakers on the left along with a dock for the optional keyboard case, USB-C charging slot at the bottom, and hidden magnets on the right side for the stylus. Speaking of that magnet, it's strong. I put it through the shake test, like I really tried to get the stylus to fall off, but it held on tight. So no worries about it randomly detaching in your bag. Overall, for a device this massive, I think it looks and feels surprisingly elegant. It's thin, well built, and has a nice mix of materials that make it feel premium without being fragile. With the design out of the way, let's quickly run through the tech specs. At the heart of this device is the Qualcomm Snapdragon A55, a 7nm 2.8 GHz octa-core processor with an Adreno 640 GPU. Now yes, this is a 7+-year-old chipset, but honestly it's still solid. This is the same chip that powered flagship phones like the Samsung Galaxy S10, which, fun fact, I still use to this day. For memory, we get 6 gigs of RAM, which should be more than enough for handling background apps, and 128GB of internal storage. Out of that, you get about 108 gigs of actual usable space. No microSD slot here, so what you see is kind of what you get. Your only option for expanding storage is maybe cloud services. In terms of sensors and connectivity, we have gyroscope for auto rotation, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth for connecting headphones and even third-party keyboards, side speakers, and a microphone for audio input and playback. Now, if we're talking about what's missing, there's no camera, no fingerprint reader, and no microSD slot. But honestly, I don't really miss those. This is an e-ink device, so it's not like I'm taking pictures or unlocking it 100 times a day. Or am I? One thing I'm keeping an eye on though is the battery. We've got a 3700 lithium-ion battery, which sounds a little low for a device with a massive 13-inch display. Even the Boox Air 4C, which has a smaller screen, packs the same battery size. I've done some battery testing and we'll get into that later in the video. Before we move on, if this video was helpful so far, please support my work by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Appreciate your support. But before battery, let's talk about this massive display. It's a 13.3-inch Carta 1300 black and white ink display. We're looking at a 2400 by 3200 resolution at 300 ppi, and let me tell you, this thing is sharp. But here's something you may not expect. No color and no front light. Yep, no built-in illumination at all. That may seem like a bit of a trade-off, but it actually comes with some real benefits. Because there's no extra layer for the front light, the ink microcapsules sit much closer to the surface. That means we get amazing contrast and crystal clear text without any of those internal shadows around the screen edges that you may sometimes see on other ink devices. To really show what I mean, take a look at this comparison. On the right, you can see the Kindle Colorsoft, which has the same Carta 1300 display, but uses a Kaleido 3 color filter. And yeah, you can definitely see the difference, it's noticeably darker. Removing that extra filter and front light gives the Note Max an edge in contrast and clarity. And honestly, that contrast is glorious. The PDFs, documents, even musical notation, all incredibly crisp. Look at these sheet music pages I'm showing right now. Every tiny detail is there, and thanks to the large 13.3-inch screen, A4 size documents fit perfectly without zooming or scrolling. If you work with large format text, this is what you want. So let's get to the big question. Does the lack of the front light make it hard to use? Well, yes and no. You do need some sort of an external light source, there's no way around that. But with just a 140 lumen bedside lamp, which for context is not super bright, and my less than perfect eyesight, I could still read comfortably enough. Anything brighter than that, and it's even better. Plus, because there's minimal glare, this thing is fantastic in bright daylight or under direct sunlight. Now let's talk about the refresh modes, as Note Max and actually other Boox devices allow you to change refresh modes based on the content you want displayed. We have normal mode, best for general reading and UI navigation. Regal mode gives you the best image quality but introduces a bit more flicker when turning pages. And A2 mode, the fastest refresh meant for things like video playback or browsing. And to my surprise, it actually handles video pretty well. One cool within the settings is the app refresh mode. You can assign different refresh settings per app, so you don't have to keep switching modes manually. It's a small thing, but very useful one. And that's the display. Big, sharp, contrast heavy, and built for reading. Now, let's dive into the reading experience. Reading on Note Max is honestly effortless. The high contrast and 300 ppi pixel density made text pop, whether you're reading EPUBs, MOBI files, or PDFs. Everything is sharp, clean, and incredibly readable, even on small fonts. One awesome feature is Smart Scribe, super useful for both reading and writing. Especially with the stylus, I can underline or highlight parts of the text, scribble over text to erase overlay markings, or double tap handwritten text to convert it into typed text. And if you're picky about font size, margin, spacing, or layout, you will love this. There are tons of customization options. You can tweak every little detail to get the perfect reading setup. And once you've dialed it in, you can save those settings so you don't have to redo them every time. Huge time saver. Another thing I love is split view. This lets you have your book or document on the left and a notebook for handwritten notes on the right. You can also copy and paste text across. Quick tip here, if you double tap the middle bar, it swaps the two screens instantly. The Note Max isn't just for books, it handles PDFs exceptionally well, even larger ones. And if you install third-party apps like Microsoft Office or Google Sheets, you can even view Excel files right on the device. Even comics look pretty solid, though I do miss a bit of a color here. But hey, that's the trade-off for having incredible clarity. And honestly, I'm really impressed with how smoothly this device handles all sorts of documents. Whether you're reading books, annotating PDFs, or even checking spreadsheets, the Note Max does it all, with comfort and style. Writing on the Note Max feels amazing, one of the best experiences on an e-ink device. Now, I know Supernote Manta with its Mobius display comes really close to a real pen and paper feel. And personally, I still prefer the feel of the remarkable Paper Pro, but I have to say I'm really impressed with what Note Max offers. At the end of the day, it really comes down to your personal preference. All these devices are pretty great right now. What doesn't come down to the preference is just how feature-packed this device is. In terms of writing functions and sheer customization, the Note Max smokes the competition. It has tons of layouts, including custom layouts you can load from PDFs, adjustable page margins to expand your writing space, tons of shapes for graphs, diagrams, or quick sketches, intuitive gestures to speed up navigation, and AI-powered Smart Scribe features I mentioned earlier, and a massive number of ways to share notes via apps, email, or cloud storage. And that's just scratching the surface. Each of these features has its own additional settings so you can really fine-tune your workflow. One of my favorite features? I can add a page from another notebook into my current notebook, or even link handwritten notes to another note, a file, or a website. It's just genius. Coming from devices like the remarkable Paper Pro or Kindle Scribe, you see all these features here and think to to yourself, why don't they have this? Of course, there's a bit of a learning curve to master all this, and I'm still discovering new settings, but if you need a workhorse of a device, it's hard to see how other ink tablets compete. And there's even more.
You can record voice memos and place them inside your notebooks.
Then, as soon as you close your notebook, it can automatically sync to your Google Drive or other cloud integrations, which I can then instantly access from my phone. Sure, it may not sound revolutionary, but a lot of competitors simply don't have this, or you have to sync everything manually, which is no bueno to me. Also, while drawings in color show up in grayscale on the screen, once exported, they keep all the colors you selected. It's pretty nice to know that you're not losing any color information, just that you don't see it directly on the device. In my first impressions video, I mentioned that the stylus felt low quality, and I kind of still stand by that. It feels light and shallow, and that rubbery cap, well, let's just say it doesn't scream premium when you know the price of this thing. But is it a deal breaker? Absolutely not. That said, it works, and there are a few good things about it. Firstly, there's no batteries needed, so no recharging required. And it's compatible with any electromagnetic resonance, or EMR for short, styluses. So if you prefer Lamy, Staedtler, or another brand of stylus, you're good to go. One small thing to mention, if you get the device from Amazon, there are no spare pen tips in the box. Kind of strange since the Air 4C had them, but here they're nowhere to be found. So you may want to pick up some spares or even titanium tips if you want something more durable. Speaking of titanium tips, would I recommend them? Yes and no. They last longer and they're more durable, but they're noisier. They feel more like a ballpoint pen than a pencil, and pressure sensitivity isn't as good, at least in my experience. I don't have any hard data to back that up, but personally, I only use titanium tips when I don't have any other option. Moving around the menus and settings feels snappy, especially when using the A2 refresh modes. In rare cases, I notice the screen doesn't register taps on the first try, and I have to tap again. It's not a big deal, but it happened multiple times, so I think it's worth mentioning. Now, when I say the screen is responsive and smooth, keep in mind this is not an iPad or an LCD Android tablet. It's smooth for an ink display, but it's not on the same level as traditional tablets. That said, it's very close, and for ink, this is probably as good as it gets right now. When using a Bluetooth keyboard, typing is fast enough to keep up, but there's a slight delay before the text appears. It's not a deal breaker, but you can definitely feel it. Overall, the speed is great, and any slight delay you see is more of a limitation of ink technology rather than an issue with the processor or RAM. Another thing to note is that Book's native apps like Neo Reader and Notes are optimized for ink, so they run much smoother than third-party apps. This becomes really obvious when using third-party drawing or sketching apps. Every single one I've tried had a noticeable pen-to-screen delay, making the experience choppy and clunky. So even though you can install Android apps on this device, the reality is that most of them aren't optimized for ink screens. If you plan to use the third-party drawing apps, expect serious lag. In the end, you're basically limited to the built-in Notes app if you want a smooth experience. One of the big questions for me was how long does the battery actually last? The Note Max has a 3700 mAh battery, which is quite small for a device of this size. For comparison, the Boox Tab X, which is the same size, has a massive 6300 mAh battery. So naturally, I was curious, how many days can you realistically speaking use this before needing to recharge? First, I tested the battery usage while reading. I went for low impact usage first, meaning Wi-Fi off, Bluetooth off, fast A2 refresh mode, and turning the page every 10 seconds, which is actually quite frequent. On average, I saw about 8% battery drain per hour. Then I tested the high impact usage, pushing the battery to the max. This meant enabling Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, highest quality Regal refresh mode, and again, turning the page every 10 seconds. The result? 8.5 to 9% battery drain per hour. Not a huge difference. Based on these numbers, you're looking at around 12 to 14 hours of reading on a full charge. Next, I tested writing on the device. With Wi-Fi and Bluetooth on and A2 fast refresh mode, I average about 3.5% battery loss every 15 minutes, which comes out to 14% per hour. If you're using this in a professional or university setting where you're writing for maybe 2, 3, maybe 4 hours, you should get 1, maybe 2 full sessions with some battery left. Honestly, I expected better. With a 3700 mAh battery and the demands of this device, I'd say you're looking for 2, maybe 3 days max on a single charge. Is that satisfying? Well, people expect ink devices to have much better battery life. So did I. But I also see the trend where charging daily is becoming the norm, so maybe it's not such a deal breaker. Let me know your thoughts. Is this battery life acceptable to you? Beyond everything I've already covered, there are a few extra features that make this a great productivity device, and I think it'd be a shame not to mention them. First, screen mirroring lets you share the Note Max screen with other devices on the same network. Then there's the screen casting, which allows you to cast the screen onto a Windows 10 machine, a really useful feature for team meetings or presentations. Another useful feature is the built-in AI assistant, which is linked to an OpenAI model. You get 30,000 characters available, which can be used while reading or writing. And if this isn't enough or you don't trust Boox AI, you can always install third-party AI via Play Store. On top of that, you can also take screenshots, scrolling screenshots, and even record the entire screen, which adds even more flexibility to how you use the device. And I know these features may not be the main selling points, but they definitely enhance the overall experience. The Boox Note Max is currently priced at $650 in the US, €700 in Europe, and £650 on Amazon UK. If you buy it directly from the Boox website, you do get an extra case and spare pen tips, which is a nice bonus. However, keep in mind that Boox return policy doesn't offer a full refund if you return the device within 30 days for personal reasons. So I'd recommend checking their policy first. If you prefer a more straightforward return process, ordering from Amazon may give you extra peace of mind. Now the big question, is it worth the price? For what it offers, I'd say yes. It's a powerful and versatile tool that excels in note-taking, reading, and productivity. The software is well optimized for e-ink, the performance is solid, and you get tons of extra features. That said, the Stylus isn't the best, and for this price I would have expected something a bit more premium. But the good news is that you can always replace it if needed, so it's not a deal breaker. By the way, if you're thinking of getting Note Max and would like to support the channel, please consider using the Amazon and Boox links in the description. It won't cost you anything extra, but I may receive a small incentive which really helps keep the channel going. After spending time with the Boox Note Max, I can confidently say it's a fantastic tool for professionals, especially those in corporate environments or those who need all the productivity tools at their disposal. If you're attending meetings, giving presentations, or taking complex notes with graphs and diagrams that may need to be linked to other notes, this device makes the process not only possible but also pretty smooth and efficient. The ability to write and share notes easily is a big plus, and with a keyboard case, it almost feels like a tablet alternative. Not quite a full replacement, but close. It's also a great option for those who need to read A4 size documents. Whether you're working with technical publications, research papers, or legal documents, the large screen displays them naturally without needing to zoom or scroll excessively. As for avid readers, it will do the job, but it's worth mentioning that there's no front light or warm light, so if you like to read in bed or low light environments, this could be a drawback compared to some smaller e-readers. So after testing and spending more time with the Boox Note Max, I have to say I'm very impressed with the device, especially its screen and overall performance. Of course, no device is perfect and there are some trade-offs, but that's to be expected. The stylus quality could be better and the battery life isn't as strong as I had hoped, but when you consider its power, flexibility and productivity features, honestly, it's a still fantastic tool for the right user. If you need a large paper-like screen for reading, note-taking, recording, screen sharing, jotting down notes, and much more, I think this could be one of the best options out there right now. And hey, I've put a ton of time and effort into preparing this video, so if you found this video helpful, I'd really appreciate if you could hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see similar content. Also, I'd love to hear from you. What are your thoughts on the Note Max? Do you think it could be a great fit for your workflow? Let me know in the comments below. But that's not all. If you're curious about how the Note Max compares to its smaller brother, the Note Air 4C, check out this full comparison video. And if you're considering other options, I also have a full review of the remarkable Paper Pro, which you can watch right here. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!